the radio to hear Brother Jimmy Lakey, from coast to coast and shore to shore. Now raise your voice. Oh, let us all, Jimmy Lakey, get out of bed. Jimmy Lakey, raise your voice. Jimmy Lakey, Lakey, hey, can't live without it with Jimmy Lakey. Jimmy Lakey.
I'll put your hands together. I'd put my hands together if I were watching me, so you should do the same thing. Good morning, everybody. You say, Lakey, you're running a bit late this morning. Well, we had a couple of technical difficulties. Had nothing to do with the stream. Ladies and gentlemen, as I was preparing about 2 minutes before the show was began, I was there at the coffee pot, the Keurig device at the Lakey Entertainment Towers, where this show originates from. And at the Lakey Entertainment Towers, boom, the Keurig stopped working. And I was like, oh, we have panic setting in. I need a cup of coffee. Ready to drink from my Rivers Promise trusty mug right there. Provided by my friends Corey Clinton at our golf tournament. So I was ready to make the coffee, and so I finally get it to work a little bit. It doesn't do the full cup. It does like this much. So I'm like, oh, let's do it again. And it won't work, and I'm beating it. I'm praying for it. I'm laying hands on it. I'm exercising demons. I'm doing everything I can to get the coffee pot, the Keurig, to work. And I get just this much coffee, and then I sit down in a hurry at the broadcast desk that I'm sitting at now. And as I do, the lid on my my lid is not on my cup. And we knocked the cup over. I say we is royal, but it's me. And so I had coffee all over my broadcast desk. Fortunately, the computers are all lifted up off the pub for the broadcast. They're all lifted up, but I've got a really wet coffee covered. See the coffee stains? That's my show sheet. That's what we're talking about today. So anyway, we're delayed here because of lots of things. I have little towels everywhere. Delilah is still on the floor down there. It didn't drip on the floor. I think we're good. Anyway, it's all good. But that was our delay, and I don't have coffee. So if I get cranky or edgy with any of you today, it's because I have not had that final cup of coffee that carries me through the show. Anyway, good morning to everybody. It's the 24th day of November, year of our Lord 2025. And as you might remember, if you're not new to the show, you've been listening for a while, you will know that this is the final show we will do for this week. Tomorrow, this time, I will be up, and away flying and begin the long, twisted journey to Rwanda. I have a couple of stops to make. Before that, one of those, check on my mother and say hello to her for Thanksgiving. And then from there, I will fly to Rwanda, and I will arrive there. When you're waking up about this time on Thanksgiving morning, mid-morning, I will be arriving in Rwanda. It'll be Thanksgiving night, 9 hours difference. So that's my schedule. So we will do the show next week from Rwanda. That is actually the plan, and it's worked before. We did that when we first launched the show. We did the show from Rwanda. The very first, I was there that week doing it during the Christmas break. We started the show in a different studio here. Now we have this studio, and then we did the show remotely in Rwanda. So the technology should work, but next week I should be live from Rwanda, and you'll get to see the work of Rivers Promise. I cannot guarantee it, but it's possible I'll do some. I think it'll be dark by the time the show airs in Rwanda at the schools. I won't do it from the school because it'll be dark and no kids are there, but I'll probably do some pre-records there, and you'll get to see a lot of behind the scenes of what we do. So don't miss next week. I promise you do not want to miss it at all. Anyway, it's a glorious day the Lord has made. Monday. That brings up a couple of Thanksgiving questions I want to get to, but before I do, should we dive into a couple of news stories here? On Friday, breaking news story was that Marjorie Taylor Greene, MTG, is going to resign from the hallowed halls of Congress. Everybody's speculating as to what happened, that she had a beef with Trump and she was not getting along with the MAGA members. I've heard a couple of things from good sources that I think that are probably more accurate. First of all, I don't know if you remember, there was a longstanding feud between Lauren Boebert and Marjorie Taylor Greene. Marjorie Taylor Greene has been on the outs with a lot of people on the Trump inner circle for a while. Some people, though, in my world have always speculated that MTG or Marjorie Taylor Greene might have been more of that establishment type and really liked the accolades and maybe more like a Liz Cheney that can vote right part of the time, but was just putting on a certain face so that she could fit in with the in crowd, but she wasn't truly part of the in crowd. I don't know. I never met Marjorie Taylor Greene. Another speculation, though, and I think this is the one that I kind of believe more, is that you don't get to that level of politics, even if you're a member of House. You don't even run for Congress unless you think you have better ideas than someone else. In a sense, you could say that is some kind of a level of a narcissism, just kind of an arrogance and the ego. You have an ego. You got to have an ego. You got to have a little bit of a swagger with you if you're going to put yourself in the hallowed halls of politics and run for office. Believe me, I know it. I ran for Congress at one point, and many of you might know that, remember that. And I did not win, but I have run for Congress, and it is a brutal contact sport. People are not nice, even on your own side. They're not nice. People are greedy for power, and they will say anything, do anything to try to destroy you, even if it destroys your entire life. They'll do it. So Marjorie Taylor Greene's got some swagger, and she had run for Congress, been in a couple of terms. The real speculation of what I hear about Marjorie Taylor Greene is that she went to President Trump and said, I'm going to run for governor. And President Trump said, you're not going to run for governor, but I'm not going to endorse you. And she got her feelings hurt thinking she was the glory girl and that little Donald would endorse little Marjorie anytime she wanted. And he said, I'm not going to withhold my endorsement. And maybe you get it later, maybe you don't, but I'm not going to let you come out of the chute and announce for governor of the state with my endorsement because I'm not sure you can win. And that's what set her off and caused her to be upset. Then she did do a couple of interviews on CNN and The View, which makes you think more of a Liz Cheney type. Anyway, if anybody's out there in the great state where Marjorie Taylor Greene resides, let us know. What are you hearing? What have you heard? And what is your speculation? And is this just kind of a tabloid story? There's members of Congress that seek not to run for re-election all the time. They don't become news, but I think because first of all, Marjorie Taylor Greene had made somewhat of a name for herself, and also Marjorie Taylor Greene is kind of seeming like she's crossing Donald Trump. It becomes a news story, but I'm thinking it's about as a news story as so many things that they're based. The relevance of the news story is actually just simply that there may be some Trump tie-in, or that she may not be very happy with President Trump. Not sure. Anyway, let us know exactly if you're hearing anything. What do you think? But I've heard that speculation is really the real speculation is that she wanted to be endorsed for governor, and President Trump would not endorse her for governor, and that set the whole thing down from there. So we can talk about that this morning. Marjorie Taylor Greene not running for Congress. Now, I don't know if you heard this. Before you make Marjorie Taylor Greene out to be a big bully with the the Donald knocking her political career to hell. And she may run still for governor, so we'll see if it's done anyway. But Marjorie Taylor Greene is resigning, I think, on January the 5th, I believe it is. So she has a date. And the word on the street is that date was chosen that she could, they're not going to get much done between now and Christmas. So they could be done immediately. They could be done for Christmas. But she's chosen a date that happens to be 3 days before she's vested into her congressional pension. Now, I will tell you a little bit what I know about congressional pensions because there's some speculation. First of all, yes, there is a congressional pension. If you serve X number of years in the government at any level, especially Congress, you go to certain levels of government service. And eventually, after you serve so many years, and Marjorie Taylor Greene's going to hit that in early January, she's going to have a congressional pension. Now, I will tell you, I remember having this discussion with my friend Tom Tancredo, who served in Congress from the great state of Colorado, ran for president. And Tom and I talked to him this a couple of times, and he explained it. He said, yes, I get a pension from Congress because I served 3 or 4 terms. He says, but you don't get full salary. He said, you're getting a fraction of that which you made at your highest portion, and that fraction gets higher the longer level of service you've had. So he said, I'm not getting, he was retired from Congress. He did get his congressional pension, but he said, people think I'm getting a full congressional salary. I am not. So yes, Marjorie Taylor Greene is waiting for her resignation date to hit a couple of days after she earns her congressional pension. He said, but but it's not going to be, she's not going to get a full salary. It's going to be a portion of that. Big portion, I don't know. But people say she's going to get a full salary the rest of her life. No, she's not going to get a full salary because the pension is regulated. And I know that because my friend Tom Tancredo, former congressman, former presidential candidate, he also receives a congressional pension. He says, believe me, it's not full price. I mean, I have to ask Tom what his pension is, but he always let me buy lunch. Just say that. I'm joking, Tom. If you're watching, we usually split it up. Anyway, good to have all of you here on the program. Jimmy is my name. And Marjorie Taylor Greene leaving the hallowed halls of Congress in January, but don't fear, she's going to have a check to cash when she walks out the door. And a lot of people wonder what her speculation is. I think the betting markets are there. If you follow the betting markets, now say that Marjorie Taylor Greene may be wanting to make a run for president. She may be angry, and she may want to be a spoiler in the run for president. And I have to say, good luck with that. I'm not. I just don't see that. I don't see her as I'd say presidential tender. I don't see that, but I could be wrong. The polymarket.com, I'm looking at it now, has J.D. Vance as number one chance, 55% chance to be the nominee. Marco Rubio is there. Marjorie Taylor Greene places. Now, you say, well, Marjorie Taylor Greene, number three. Well, you know who's number four? Donald Trump, and he can't even run again. And number three is Tucker Carlson. So, Ron DeSantis is on the list. Trump Jr., Ted Cruz is at 2%. Glenn Youngkin's at 1%. So let's just say there's a hefty drop-off between J.D. Vance and Marjorie Taylor Greene. And I would dare say by the end of a couple of months, Marjorie Taylor Greene will just be a blip on our radar screen. And I'm not saying she won't continue politically, but I just don't see her running for president. She may run. A lot of people run, but I just don't see it. Anyway, give me your thoughts on Marjorie Taylor Greene. Would love to hear those as well. I remember last week, one of the big stories of the day was the seditious comments by members of the Democrat Congressional Caucus, both U.S. Senate and the House of Representatives, warning members of the service, whether CIA, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Space Force, etc., don't take illegal orders. Well, the media has actually been somewhat, I'll say somewhat, and that they use that very gingerly, somewhat inquisitive of these Democrats and saying, what are the illegal orders that you're afraid of? What's Donald Trump given an order for that's illegal? Amy Klobuchar, the senator from Minnesota. Now, I don't know what's up with you people in Minnesota, but you have some of the most dumbass representatives ever. You got Tim Walz, first of all. That is a shame on all of you, and it's a scourge on your house. Now, I can't say much. I come from the state of Colorado, and we have Jared Polis, and I don't know, outside of Timmy Walz, is there more of a jazz hand buffoon than Tim Walz and Jared Polis? I mean, absolute insane people. So I get it, but Minnesota, I think you'll one-up us. You have Klobuchar, who probably would have been Joe Biden's vice president had Joe Biden Joe Biden said he's going to have a woman. He said a black woman on the Supreme Court, but going to have a woman running mate. Well, there were no women that were really qualified. He actually looked at Karen Bass, who's now the governor of California, but she was just a lowly member of Congress. That didn't work. Then he looked at Amy Klobuchar. A lot of people think he really wanted Amy Klobuchar, but Joe Biden was, with the identity politics put in a box that he put himself, saying it's got to be a female. Well, Amy Klobuchar had been seen early in her career as an anti-crime or harder on crime. And remember, Joe Biden was choosing his running mate right about the time of the George Floyd riots, where police were bad, defund the police. So Joe Biden was not going to pick probably a more qualified and at least more eloquent woman. I'm not saying smarter, but just more eloquent woman than Kamala Harris, because Amy Klobuchar from Minnesota was seen to be a pro-police, and they're going to have to fight that. The same reason Kamala could not pick Josh Shapiro, because she's Jew, and Democrats are anti-Semitic and hate Jews. So the Democrats always have themselves in a quandary because they divide you up into these categories, and there's certain people you like and hate and don't like. So Amy Klobuchar could have been your VP under Biden, but he couldn't choose her because she was seen as pro-police or anti-crime. Well, she goes on television, and she kind of makes a dumbass of herself. I know that's not hard for her to do, but she goes on television and was asked, what orders are you and your colleagues afraid that President Trump is going to be breaking? and she kind of does a word salad. I don't have the video. It was not working. And then I had a coffee incident here at the studio and wasn't able to do the final push the button on that. But she said, well, it's like when he sends in the National Guard and then the courts say you can't have the National Guard. And so if they go out and do anything, they're violating an order. They're fulfilling an illegal order. They can stay there, but they can't get people. And I'm like, Amy Klobuchar, you're not real smart. I don't know if you've been, I don't know if you've been hanging out. I don't know what you've been doing there in Minnesota. Maybe you've been sniffing tires like the governor's wife in Minnesota, Tim Walz. She liked to sniff the burning tires of the riots. Are your brain cells dead? she says, if they're out there defending the National Guard, they can't. Well, so far, every instance in which the National Guard has been deployed, it's been taken to court. You've had some crazy liberal judges say you can't do that, but the Supreme Court has backed the president. So she couldn't think of anything about the district judge's order on the National Guard. The Supreme Court overrides them. So they just can't think of it. And I'm just pleased that the Democrats are being asked this question over and over and over again. Even one of the instigators on the no illegal orders, that would be the Senator Alyssa Slotkin. Delilah said you should say it Slutkin for an emphasis. And I said, Delilah, that would not be, we do nicknames sometimes, but that would not be appropriate, Delilah. And I know you thought it'd be funny, but I'm going to be proper. We'll call her Senator Alyssa Slotkin. She's a Democrat from Michigan. She admitted on a television with ABC's This Week, she says she's not aware of whether President Trump has issued any illegal orders. So they're grilling her and saying, hey, you're coming out with a saying you rebuke the illegal orders that you're being told the enemy's within. What illegal orders are you talking about? And she says, I'm not aware of any. Martha Raddatz actually said, do you believe President Trump has issued any illegal orders? And Slotkin says, to my knowledge, well, I'm not aware of anything that's illegal, but certainly there's legal gymnastics going on. Yeah. There's gymnastics going on. And then she says, and these Caribbean bombings of the bombing the drug dealers and, this thing related to Venezuela. Can you tell us what would be illegal about anything he's done? Slotkin is an idiot. The people of Michigan are being disgraced by this fool that calls themselves a U.S. senator, but she's an absolute buffoon, as is Amy Klobuchar. Women in the Democrat Party, I hate to break the news to you. You espouse yourself and say Trump's a racist, a sexist, and bigot. No, Trump's not a sexist. He just doesn't surround himself with fools like Slotkin and Klobuchar. He actually has competent women around him. And if you look at all the women that the Democrats have thrust upon us because they're the party of gender equality, if you look at all the women that they have thrust upon us, they thrust Hillary Rodham Kankles Clinton, they thrust Slotkin, they give us Klobuchar, they give us Kamala Harris, and we reject them. And that's why Democrats have to have men go get dressed up as women and hide their twig and berries and pretend to be women, because women out there that are actually Democrats are bat crap crazy, and that's who goes to the front of the line for the Democrat Party. So I just throw that out there for comparison. They've given you Klobuchar, they've given you Slotkin, they've given you Hillary Rodham Kankles Clinton, they've given you Kamala Harris. We know that Tim Walz's wife likes to sniff burning tires through the windows. They've given you all these crazy women and say, look at our women. We have women in the Senate. No, you've got crazy fools in the Senate. And it doesn't matter whether they have the twig and berries or whether they sit down to pee. Doesn't matter to me. They're absolutely bat crap crazy. And that's why Democrats now endorse men being able to dress up and pretend to be women, because the women that have glommed onto their party are absolutely insane. There's your analysis for the day about women in the Democrat Party. Let's talk about something more pleasant, shall we? You ready? Pie. I like pie. I had pie once or twice a year. Up until yesterday, the last piece of pie I had was at Thanksgiving last year, as I spent it at the home of Alicia and Joshua Lewis of Lehman Lewis Financial Group. My son and I went there for Thanksgiving lunch. Very gracious invitation. And we went there and had a fantastic time. And I had pie. And I don't remember which pie it was. I don't remember, pumpkin or pecan. I don't know. And yes, it is called pecan pie. Now, earlier in the pre-show meeting, producer Chad was saying pecan pie. And if you say pecan, I don't know if I can trust you any longer. I don't know. There are people that say pecan. What region of the country says pecan and who says pecan? It's pecan pie. And so yesterday, a friend of mine brought some pecan pie, and I had a sliver of it, knowing that I would be on an airplane landing in Africa on Thanksgiving and not get the pecan pie. And I had some, and it was delightful. It was a very good one. And I tried then in my head to go, do I like, for Thanksgiving, do I like the pumpkin pie, or do I like the pecan pie? And producer Chad and I were talking in the show while he was pronouncing pecan. Yeah, he's freaking, I don't know what. There's people that call it pecan, and I thought pecan was like something to do way up north, but evidently Colorado people call it pecan as well. I mean, I don't judge, I just don't trust you. No, pecan, right? That's what it's pecan pie. Anyway, we were discussing, and I said pumpkin pie, if it's done well, is really one of my favorites of the pies in the pie family, but you've got to put the whipped cream on the top, or the Cool Whip, and none of that stuff you squirt from the bottle. You need to get the big tub of it, and you got to dollop it out there, slap it on there, slather it. If you're squirting it, it's not good. If you're slathering it, it's better. And so anyway, your favorite pie for Thanksgiving. I don't eat a lot of sweets. I mean, I don't eat a lot of sweets, but I can tell you the sweets that I will eat. I'll be tempted by a piece of cheesecake. I'm not necessarily saying Thanksgiving. I can be tempted occasionally, take my son to the Dairy Queen. I'll have a small little cone. I don't like the sweets that much, but when it comes to pie, it's Thanksgiving, and it's part of the thankful experience that I have to say I'm so thankful for pie. And I ate some. I had my pecan pie yesterday, and I was very grateful for it, and it was very good. So that's the question of the day: is what is your favorite pie? For Thanksgiving on this coming Thursday, whenever you're out celebrating, which pie shall you be eating, and will you enjoy the most? Now, I know most people say the pecan or the pumpkin. I do know people that have kind of a pie buffet, if you will. You have the apple pie, which is nice. I guess you have blueberry pie, all this stuff you can do. But for Thanksgiving, what is your favorite pie? And you don't have to say pumpkin, or you don't have to say pecan, but let us know what your favorite pie is. That's your question of the day. So wherever you are listening to the program, if you would, please comment, and we would love to have those here on the screen. My wife says there's one on the screen from the YouTube channel. My wife says I'm not allowed to have pumpkin pie except around Thanksgiving. It's probably a good rule of thumb. I don't eat pumpkin pie outside of the holiday season, and being that I'm a single man living in the house of the Lakey estate, and there's no need for me to go buy a pie, right? A whole pie. And even when my son is home from college, he's not a sweets. He's a college athlete. He's like, Dad, that's bad for me. I'm not going to have that. And so he won't eat much pie either. So the pie's going to have to be kind of at friends or at parties, since I'll have a sliver of pie. But I just don't know. I like both of them. A good pecan pie is fantastic. A good pumpkin pie. Now, producer Chad also was saying that he had a minced meat pie. I think one of the grandparents used to make a minced meat pie. And I have to say, I don't know. He says it's usually made with venison and some fruit. And it just sounds disgusting. I mean, it may be fantastic. It's like the British have a dessert that they like called spotted dick. And that sounds disgusting. And Aiden, all of a sudden, one of the hipster youth over there, pops up and says, "What did you say?" No, that is a British dessert, spotted dick. And I don't know what it tastes like or what it looks like, I hate to say this, but that's what they have. They have the spotted dick. And minced meat pie sounds just slightly less offensive and gross than the British's spotted dick. I don't know what it is. It's just a dessert. Don't look at me that way, Delilah. Don't judge me. It's a real dessert in the United Kingdom. That's what they call it. I don't know what it is. I've not had it. I don't know. She's struggling like, what is it? I don't know what it is. It's spotted dick. But to eat it there, and it sounds that now, if you had to choose between the mincemeat pie and the spotted dick, I'm going with the mincemeat pie. I'm just saying that. But that's a real dessert in the UK. And it's not a curse word or a profanity. It's what they called the thing. Anyway, your favorite pie, feel free. Arlo says, I like pumpkin pie, but my family prefers my coconut cream pie. I'm not a big coconut fan, but I do that. Pie metering is not American. Okay, so I told him his wife says only around Thanksgiving that he can have pie, and he says it's not American. Well, if you married her, don't look at me. Don't come here complaining. Go to the therapist and deal with it yourself. What are we, marriage counselors here now? I'm single. What the hell do I know about marriage? I know. On the YouTube channel as well, Ray says, I do like a chocolate cheesecake topped with glazed cherries. I'm not a traditional pie guy. Ray, I appreciate your opinion there on the cheesecake. If you give me a regular cheesecake, standard cheesecake, and I don't need the fresh blueberries on it, I won't reject them. But the blueberry compote, that kind of gel, it's called compote. Yeah, you put that on top. Oh, ooh, good Lord in heaven. That is heaven on earth with a good blueberry compote on the top and the cheesecake. That's a very fantastic thing. And that could be year round. Now, if it's March and someone says you want pecan pie, I'm like, it's not Thanksgiving. If it's April and they say you want pumpkin pie, I'm like, it's not Christmas. But you offer me cheesecake, then I might. Now, on the YouTube channel, Highway Living says someone's got to have your back. Well, I do have your back. But I'm also looking for your front. I don't want you to have a big belly. So I'm saying you could meter your pie for your own sake. And that way you say you're doing it for healthy living. And that way don't give your wife any credit. You could do that. See, this is as best as my marriage advice I get. You could do it for you selfishly and meter your pie or not meter your pie. But if you do meter your pie, say you're doing it for you, not for her. All right. What is your, okay. Rich says our homemade choice for a family is a dessert choice for a family's homemade banana pudding. Now, Rich, I don't know if that's for Thanksgiving, though. What is your favorite Thanksgiving pie that you're going to do at Thanksgiving? Banana pudding's great. Grandma used to make some green banana pudding. You got those Nilla wafers on there. That's a good thing. If you do it well, banana pudding is a fantastic thing. Haven't had it in probably 20 years, but it's really, really good. Did I mention my show sheet is soaked with coffee right now? It is totally soaked up with coffee. Don't know what we'll do with it, but it's there. I got another question on Thanksgiving while we're having fun with the pie discussion. Bob says cheesecake with the strawberry compote is also amazing. Yeah, I can see that, Bob. I can see that. I'm preferential to the blueberries, but I can see that. A good cheesecake is fantastic. But again, try not to eat them too often. Try not to. I've got another question for you. What is the best time that you eat your Thanksgiving meal? This coming Thursday, are you a lunch person, noon? Some people wait till dinner. I do remember a couple of times growing up, the Dallas Cowboys usually play that second game, which was 3:00 in the afternoon. And a lot of times we would go to that game, at least with family or my father and I, as a kid, would go to the Thanksgiving game. So it's sort of 3:00 Mountain Time, 3:00 Central Time, 2:00 Mountain. So by the time you got home, it was 6 or 7. And there were times that we waited until after the Cowboy game to have Thanksgiving dinner. And that always just seemed awkward, or we'd have to get back from the Dallas Cowboys game to have the Thanksgiving dinner. So that was always weird to eat that late. And there were a few times I remember family had come over, they gathered to watch the Dallas Cowboys game. And then after the Dallas Cowboys game was over, we would have Thanksgiving meal. Didn't like it as much. You're hungry. You don't want to snack too much. The food's cooking all day. And if you eat later in the day, that kind of occupies your entire day in the kitchen. And I have a question about you people that are going to eat too late. How do you have Thanksgiving leftovers if you eat too late? I would prefer that Thanksgiving lunch should be about noon, 1:00, right at the end of that first game, usually the Detroit Lions, somewhere in that range. You eat your lunch, and then you have time to maybe take a quick little snooze or go right into the Dallas Cowboys football game. Nobody wants to see the Detroit Lions anyway. And then after that, by the end of the game, you're hungry, and that maybe you ate too much, you could go have your dessert. That was always the thing we'd do. We'd watch the Cowboys game, and after that, then you're no longer full, and you could rebutton button on your pants, and have your dessert then, or have another round of turkey. So there's another question of the day on Thanksgiving is not just what is your favorite Thanksgiving pie, but when is the best time to eat the Thanksgiving feast? at your home. I know producer Chad says they're going to eat later this year, and they're going to do that because they have to accommodate a family member who has to work until like 4 or 5 o'clock. So I get that. There's exceptions to the rule. I understand that. But if all things were equal and you were king for the day, what is the proper time to eat your Thanksgiving meal? On the YouTube channel, yet noon to 1 p.m. has always been that in our household. That's the best thing, because a lot of you get up, and I remember somebody would have some breakfast. Maybe there was some bacon or some biscuits from grandma on the counter, maybe some gravy. You served yourself a little breakfast snack, knowing that you're going to get your ass chased out of the kitchen here real soon, and you move right along and don't be in the kitchen anymore. Get the heck out of the way, if you would. And so anyway, there's your two questions of the day. When's the best time to eat Thanksgiving dinner, and what is your best Thanksgiving pie? Which one do you prefer? We'd love to hear from you. All right, back to the news. Then I want to talk about Africa, and I'm heading over there, as you know, this week. And the next time after today that you see me live on the camera, good Lord willing, is going to be when I'm actually in Rwanda doing the show. If you weren't with us last year when we started this show, we did some of the early shows from Rwanda, and it's always fun, and the backgrounds of the people, and it's a good time. So join us, and we will we'll connect with you next week. But I have this interesting story. You ever notice how divided America is? I mean, if you're as long as you're out in the public, you know that we're very, very divided. And sometimes you wonder where the division comes from. You wonder, did it come from the education system? Has it come from the falling apart of the family? How did we raise such a bunch of idiots? You just say, how did we become so divided? And then you start kind of thinking about, well, we're divided partially because the media propagandizes us. And so then you look at, how did the media become so partisan? And we talk about this with John O'Connor all the time, who was Deep Throat's attorney, wrote a story about the Washington Post and how their partisan journalism created the political divide we live in today. So there's a lot of roots. It's just interesting. How did we end up so divided with so many people seeing the same thing from different paradigms and drawing different conclusions? It used to be, as Americans, we could come together and say, oh, here's the problem, and here's my solution. Here's yours. So no, now it's he's an orange man, he's bad, he's automatically evil, and the demonization. Well, part of that, again, the origins might come from the Mockingbird, Project Mockingbird for the media, the CIA. You have a lot of intelligence stuff going on. And so I think we could look domestically for a lot of our division and realize that division has been sown among us many times, maybe purposefully, to keep us divided and to keep people in power. Well, the House Intelligence Committee Chairman Rick Crawford of Arkansas is pressing for a major counterintelligence reform program against the spy agencies. He is warning, this is the committee chairperson of the House Intelligence Committee, he's warning that foreign actors are conspiring with Americans to destabilize and to divide Americans. So if you think it's just the Mockingbird media, you think it's just the public schools, you think it's just this, and this, this guy, Crawford, tells Just the News, he says, I think there's a whole network of both state and non-state actors that bring that to bear here in the United States, that to exploit any kind of political divide that might exist or schisms that may exist even without political party. So foreign actors help us sow discord. We've seen the malign influence from state actors. It includes China and Russia and Iran, but there's also non-state actors that can be bidding on the nation state as well. He says, for example, what if you had Russia was essentially paying for cyber attacks against certain targets, or that China might be doing the same thing? China might be mobilizing the diaspora that lives here in the United States, maybe the United States citizens. He says there's growing collaboration of foreign malign influencers that are on the U.S. soil, and they're making divisions here in America. And Crawford is now pressing for counterintelligence reforms as an urgent matter of national security. And he says, I think FBI Director Kash Patel is doing a tremendous job inside the intelligence community in putting a new way of thinking forward and structures employed. He says, but we need to talk about this. We need to be in a position to intercept these types of things and protect our citizens here at home. And we can broaden our scope and bring a lot of expertise and a lot of good augmentation to what the FBI is already doing. We need reform of the counterintelligence reform here in America. It brings me to the consideration. I just throw this out here for you to contemplate and consider. Yeah, we have an education problem. We have a media problem. All these things are true. And do you notice that when President Trump, I think, played it very well, when Mamdani went to the Oval Office and President Trump said, we had a reasonable discussion. And people were shocked by that. People were, Mamdani, why did you even stand by the president? People were criticizing Trump and going, I can't believe he complimented Mamdani. I remember back years ago, I was on the radio station that many of you heard me on. The radio station you heard me on was 600 KCOL. And from on those that iHeart ship, I was on the radio, and for years, you've met him on this show. He had to take some time off. We'll have him back on soon, but Steve Laffey. And Laffey and I would talk about it. And Steve Laffey ran for president. You might remember that as well. Didn't have much traction, but he was actually a candidate stumping around New Hampshire a couple of years ago. So in Iowa as well. He was in Iowa, going to all the state fairs, and you might have followed his campaign. Well, Laffey and I talked about, if you looked at the message of what Steve Laffey always talked about, is the erasure of the middle class, and the rich guys got richer, the poor guys got poorer. And it was really kind of fascinating that I pointed out on the show, I said, you and let's say a Bernie Sanders was running as a Democrat at the time, you guys say kind of the same thing. How you get there 2 different ways. And that used to be how it worked in American politics, is you had a guy like Trump or a Republican that said, we have to get be a friend of the middle class. You have the Democrat, we got to strengthen the middle class. And, one side wanted to tax the rich. But now it becomes just personal. It's no longer people are able to sit down and say, you know what, we have a common goal. We have different paths to get there. Could we alter a path a little bit and find something that we can all agree on? And I think we missed that. And it's part of that's the media, the demonization of Donald Trump and the media. And all these things are true, but Mamdani, at least in that moment, brought us back to the days of where you say, you know what? You can call each other all sorts of names. Tip O'Neill used to call Ronald Reagan all sorts of names, but famously they could have a beer at the end of the day when the whistle went off and they clocked off duty, and have a beer and have a discussion. And I think that's what shocked the media so much, is we haven't seen that. And you have to look and say, wait, Mamdani's in the White House and he's making a case for his case in New York, and President Trump says, I'll help him. We want to help him. We want New York to be successful. It shows that President Trump's approaching this the way that politicians used to approach this, to say, I don't agree with everything, but let's have a beer. Let's talk it over and see what we can agree on. And we may be 5%, 10%, 20%, but let's find something that we can agree on. And here you have the Democrats, Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, these jackwagon idiots in the squad, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, that says, we can't agree. We will never speak to him. Well, if you never speak to him, then you're not allowed to the Oval Office and you're not going to make progress. And I find it quite refreshing that we're finding, at least with the Democrat socialists, at least in one meeting, that you have just kind of this exchange of ideas. And yeah, you call me fascist, I understand it. And Trump played it off, and they had a conversation. And I'm not saying they're going to be besties, but at least there was a dialogue, and we don't get that anymore. And this intelligence guy from the House Intelligence Committee is going to be fascinating. He says some of this division that you have out there could be because of foreign actors out there. Somebody just sent me a message. The hat Nazi is back on the YouTube channel. I think we have some stalker that has shown up on YouTube recently. I can't see all the comments that come in because I'm talking. You get hecklers, and I don't know what they're talking about. A hat. They don't like hats. Well, I don't like people who live in their mother's basement either. So, that's a whole different story. So evidently it's quite funny. Delilah just said it's quite funny. The hat Nazi's back. Okay, good. They don't like my face either? Well, I've always said this is a face for radio, but it just so happens people are happy to put a camera in front of me. If you don't like this show, sir, ma'am, whatever you are, in Mama's Basement, go look up the TV shows. You'll find those quite enjoyable. Frontier Taste and Tales, etc. You'll find those quite enjoyable. All right. The hat or the face? Well, why are you watching that if it all offends you that much? Is that to cover everything? Okay, good. All right. I want to talk about Africa. If you notice, I changed up the hats today, and I have a Rivers Promise hat on. And I do that because I'm heading over to do the Lord's work in Rwanda. and I'll be there this week. And I get so excited. One of my friends says, Jimmy, you get so excited when you go. I said, I do. I feel like I'm going back like home. It's a happy place for me. And a lot of you have been so good the last couple of days with some donations. And I want to remind you that today's the last day you're going to hear about this until next week. But we're asking for you to help us with our Christmas project. And our Christmas project is that I go shopping. We go over there. You might remember some of the scenes, and we'll have some more for you this coming week. But we go out and we buy shoes. Shoes are a very hot commodity. The kids just need shoes, and they desperately need the shoes. They have to have shoes because obviously they're walking around barefoot. Literally, when we got to this area of Rwanda after we closed up the orphanage my son had been raised in, or not born in, but was at, closed that up a couple of years after his adoption. So we ended up out in this remote area, which is not where my son's from, but it's a very poor and forgotten place. It's the only kind of district or county that doesn't have a university, very few schools, kind of a forgotten crowd of people out there. And we planted a school. We're now building Legacy Christian Academy. And after Thanksgiving and after we get into Christmas, we're going to talk about closing out the year in our building fund and helping to complete the building of this beautiful campus here. Part of that's already built. We got to finish up the rest of it. That's the Legacy Christian Academy kindergarten through 6th grade campus. If you take a look, this building here is already in existence. You see that. This is all still dirt. We got to build out the rest of the campus. We're putting in a housing unit over here for teachers. That's not on the program. We'll talk about the building later. But what I want to talk about shoes, and we need to buy hundreds of pairs of shoes to kids because these are kids that would not have shoes if we don't provide them. And it's $25 for a pair of shoes. And I know some people are motivated by different things. Some people are motivated by veterans causes, pet causes, and things. And I get it. And be generous to those causes throughout the time of this giving season. As you start about National Giving Tuesday or Colorado Gives Day or wherever you're at, there's times when people emphasize giving. But if you could find it in your heart and you feel that tingle in your little spirit, $25 buys a kid a pair of shoes. And again, these are children that would not have shoes if we don't buy them. And, you know, we don't, the toys, toys are something that they would be amazed that we have an entire complete store of toys. When they find a rock and they can skip it across the pond, that's a toy to them. And there's more important things. Survival is more on their mind than getting a Barbie doll or a stuffed animal. Not to say that sometimes with somebody, we don't buy a kid a stuffed animal or something, but it's just going to it's not going to last very long. But the shoes are huge. And if you'd like to donate, if you could donate $25 to help us buy the shoes for the kids, $25 buys a pair of shoes for children. I want to thank you. I think Linda jumped in and gave $500 over the weekend. Some of you helped out with producer Chad's matching gifts donation up to $500, and we hit that. Jay Ratliff chipped in with $1,000 last week for the greatest need in what we call shoes. And I know that some of you, and I'm going to mess up the names because I don't have a list of you in front of you. I'll mention all of you next week. But Stacy, who's in the chat room, I think Arloa jumps in there. Linda jumped in there. Jim jumped in. There's just a bunch of you that watch this show. And I just see the names and I say, oh, I think that's the person from the program. Sometimes I match the names. Some of you have code names on here and I get it. But man, thank you so much. And producer Chad did matching funds. And I said, I wonder what I could do. And so I'm going to do this today. We're almost wrapping up, and here in the next 24 hours, I will be airborne, and I will match. We're going to spend Jimmy's money now. We spent producer Chad's money, and I want to offer the same thing that producer Chad did. I will match up to, I will say $500. The next $500, I will match it. So if you guys pitch in $500 together, $25, $10, I'll match it. I'll match that. And if I get really good and I get real happy and my coffee ever kicks in, I might take it to 1,000. But I haven't had enough coffee to think that through. I haven't had I haven't had enough coffee to go 1,000. But I'll go $500. The next $500, I will match up to 500. Producer Chad did it. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. I'm not calling him a goose or me a gander, but you get to say. Producer Chad and I are partners on this program, so I'm just going to I'll match it. I'll do the same thing. $500. That'll be $1,000. And again, once I get some coffee, because my coffee is all over my show sheet here. Once I get my show sheet coffee on, it's all wiped up. I'm dealing with a soaking wet stack of stuff here because the coffee spilled. So once I get coffee, I may go 1,000. I'll let you know. But let's do $500. Everybody go to riverspromise.org. Somebody just sent me the message that the YouTube guy saying, I guess I hurt his feelings by calling him a Nazi. Well, the hat Nazi is like a soup Nazi. It's not like a real Nazi. It's a soup Nazi. Remember what, Seinfeld? Don't be so delicate. Seinfeld, no soup for you. He's called the soup Nazi. And somebody's out there saying, no hat for you. Well, that's a hat Nazi. It's not like I'm calling you Adolf Hitler or anything. I'm calling you like the soup guy, but you're the hat guy. And somebody, okay, they're flashing here. I'm so sorry. The truth about your hat hurt your feelings so badly. Listen, I've been doing talk radio for a long time and talk media. Talking about my hat does not hurt my does not hurt my feelings at all. I don't give a rat's ass whether you like the hat or it doesn't matter to me. I just think it's funny that people would spend any amount of time. You know, I spend my time talking news, trying to change culture and maybe save lives in Africa. And I just find it interesting that anybody spend any amount of time watching the show to talk about the size of my face and the hat that I have on my head. It's got to be a really pathetic existence. I just find that to be a sad thing. So anyway, I just throw that out there. It's not like soup Nazi. It's a Seinfeld reference. Boy, you know you're old when the youngsters out there don't know the Seinfeld reference. Delilah, you know the soup Nazi? She's shaking her head no. She's a little bit? Okay. She says a little bit. She thinks she knows. I mean, she has no clue. Anyway, I'm glad to have all of you here. $500. I'm going to match $500 in donations, and I'll do that through the end of the day. And, $500. I'll match them. 20. You give 25, I'll get 25. You give 15, I'll give 15. You give 100, I give 100. I'll do that up to around $500. Might go a little over. I just haven't had enough coffee to really think through. But believe me, I'm sure I'm going to get more than 500. But I'll match the next 500. You have 500 extra. I've already given some donations. I'll do another 500. So $500 matching donations. If you want to get even with Lakey, you don't like his hat. You hate Lakey's hat. You hate his round face. Well, donate and spend my money, would you? Spend my cash, okay? I'm no Pat McAfee that's going to give you $1 million for kicking a field goal, ESPN reference, but I'll match your donation. So if you're out there lurking in the shadows, feel free to donate at riverspromise.com, riverspromise.org, and the next $500, I will match it for sure. Now, that's above and beyond the money I've already given. So that's why producer Chad had already made a donation to the shoe cause. You didn't know that. Producer Chad had already given to the shoe cause, and he says, I'll match and I'll give more. And that's kind of how I am. I'm like, okay, I'll match and I'll give more, but we already are giving to the cause. And so this isn't like, hey, this is what I was already planning to give, so I'm just going to give it in. No, Producer Chad had already made a donation earlier that week to the shoe cause to Rivers Promise. And he decided he was going to give more and match it. And that's kind of where I'm at. I'm like, I've already given. My budget of giving is done, but I'll do more if you'll match it. So this is not necessarily some weird gimmick of just, well, I was going to give 500 anyway or 1,000 anyway, so I'll match it. No, I already give it. I've already written the check, but I'll dig deeper if you will help us. So go to riverspromise.com, riverspromise.org, and I would love to do that. I'd love to match those for us, and I'm going to spend it for us too. We're going to go over there and we're going to go to the markets there, and it's quite a treat to go to the markets. It's a fascinating and a very, very, very fun time. All right, what else do we have in the news that we can't wait to get to? Marjorie Taylor Greene, we hit that. Foreign actors causing our division. Possibly so. And Democrat senators still can't find anything that Donald Trump has done that's an illegal order, but make sure you refute those illegal orders, but he hasn't made any. So Democrats, again, have egg on their face. Your question of the day comes back to the phrase of what is your favorite type of pie? The favorite type of pie, remember that one? Favorite pie is a good thing. And also, what time of day do you like to have your Thanksgiving dinner? I don't know what you have decided on that, but I'm going to tell you the right time to have Thanksgiving dinner is sometime, I would say, before the Dallas Cowboys football game, which is usually 2 o'clock Mountain, 3 o'clock Central. That you eat it before that. Stacy says pecan pie and usually eat at 12 or 1. I think that's a fantastic idea. The pecan pie and eat at 12 or 1, and then you can watch the Dallas Cowboys football game Thanksgiving. Jerry Jones jumps out of that big Salvation Army bucket. That's a fantastic thing. And Santa Claus shows up. Dolly Parton shows up in a cheerleader costume like she did a couple of years ago, and it's a good day. And then after the football game, if you don't fall asleep during it, you can take a little brief nap maybe during halftime if you want, and then you can have your leftovers and your pie afterwards. I think that is I think that's a fantastic thing to eat about 12, 1 o'clock. And as you eat at 12 or 1 o'clock, take a nap, watch some football, and then go back for the leftovers afterwards, or have the pie after. That's the best plan. Stacy, you're on it. Any of you that are eating later, you better have a good excuse. Producer Chad's eating later because he's got to accommodate for a daughter that doesn't get off work until a bit later. I get that. That's totally acceptable. But if you're doing Thanksgiving, we call it dinner, it's really Thanksgiving lunch. If you're doing that later in the day for no reason, and you're just doing it for later, I think you're wrong. I think the Pilgrims didn't have electricity, and so when they had that first Thanksgiving, they ate in the broad daylight. They had lunchtime because there were no lights to turn on at night. And I think we have to be like the Pilgrims and eat in broad daylight. I think we do. I think you need to eat broad daylight and not have to wait for the dead of night. The Pilgrims couldn't have had a feast like that with the Native Americans, the Indians, if you will. They couldn't have had a feast at 6, 7 o'clock at night because the sun was going down. It gets chilly outside. So I think you have to eat. I think you have to eat early in the day to be like the Pilgrims, unless you have a good reason. And I do expect, so the producer Chad can maintain the sanctity of the moment of like the first Thanksgiving, since they have to eat later because someone's not coming in until later. I think they should have to eat by candlelight, the whole thing by candlelight. That way it's authentic. It's an authentic Thanksgiving feast like the Native Americans did. Anybody spent my money yet, Delilah? Have you looked? I'm offering to match $500 right now. Let me go in there. I can look over here, I think. Dennis, $25. Dennis, I'll match you. $25 from me. You and me. $25. Thank you very much. And whatever you market, Dennis marketed Legacy Christian Academy. You can do Greatest Need. Anything that comes in today, unless it's specified like a child, somebody, a specific child, I'm going to count it as a matching fund. So Dennis, you spent my first $25 of matching funds. I'll match up to $500 today. Dennis, thank you very much for doing that. Throughout the course of the day, go look at your wallet, go look at your bank account and see how it is that you can actually spend my money. I appreciate you to do that. If you're going to be saying a prayer, if any of you are praying people, pray for, of course, safe travels. I look forward to traveling there. I also look forward to helping the kids out. And a lot of needs. If you want to go kind of see, it all sounds fun. We're buying shoes for kids. You want to see the emotional part of what we do. Go back and watch Friday's show where I lost it with some tears, fighting those things because of a situation we had to deal with a young lady, one of our little girls, 10 years old, that a real bad person did bad things to her. And she's on the mend, and we're helping her the best we can. But it's all about lives. It's all about kids. They're all God's kids, and they're all God's kids over there. And occasionally I run across someone and say, well, "Why don't you do stuff in America?" First of all, why don't you do something in America? That's your calling. Do something in America. My calling was for those people. So don't judge me. But it was Jesus himself who said, "Go into all the world." And he lifted out Judea and Samaria and all the ends of the earth. And he said, "Go out and do this." So don't become an isolationist when it comes to spreading Christian faith, and don't become an isolationist when it comes to just doing the works of Jesus. The book of James says true religion is taking care of the widows and the orphans. That's your true religion. And it's a lot of aspects that say, don't be afraid to give to a charity that works in Rwanda if that's a trepidation you have, because Jesus instructed us to go into all the world. And if you say, well, I'd rather give to this cause because it's here, do it, then give to that cause. But if you find it in your heart to give, $25 buys that pair of shoes for the kids for Christmas. Again, these are kids that would not have shoes otherwise. But our organization, Rivers Promise, doesn't just step in for shoes and education. That's our main focus. We had a child 2 years ago, almost now, last year, I believe, on her way home from school, or she wasn't at school. She was missing school that day, had been sick. She was going to kind of a babysitter's house, and she got run over and killed. And we helped with the funeral expense. Somebody said, why did you pay for the funeral expense? Because culturally, had we not helped with that funeral expense, this mother would have been cast out from the village, and probably would have just in the dead of night picked up her and her kids out of the schools and headed as far away so no one knew, because she would have been considered abandoning her child because she couldn't do that. It was culturally a faux pas, and it would have sent this woman into disgrace and her family into disgrace for the rest of her life. And so a few $100 here and there. It's not our practice. We're not a funeral company, but we try to help out where we can. We had this little girl that was raped 3 times, 3 different days by a bad man, and that bad man's in jail, probably never going to see the light of day again in Rwanda, but we help her, and she attends our school, we help her. And so again, $25 buys a kid a pair of shoes, but when you give to the greatest need, shoes are great, but there's other things that we do that you just have to think of, what if we had not been there for that little girl who had the funeral? What if we had not been there for this girl that is getting immediate help, a medical testing, make sure she didn't catch any kind of a disease from her perpetrator. All these things that you don't think about, and then thank God we were there for this little girl. And so we talk about shoes, talk about Christmas, and it's all fun, and we're thinking about buying a kid a gift. But when you do give throughout the year to Rivers Promise, you're actually literally, I believe, you're saving lives. And these are kids that God put on the planet for a reason. And let's not sit here and arrogantly say, well, that's over there, I'm over here. Well, Jesus told us to go to all the earth, the ends of the earth, and do his work. And that was called the Great Commission. And sometimes the Great Commission is done by people preaching in big revival meetings like a Billy Graham. And sometimes the Great Commission can just be going in and illustrating and demonstrating the heart of Jesus to people. And then they go, why are you so kind to us? We're just a bunch of people in a remote back area of Rwanda. No one's ever thought of us before. Why do you think of me? Why do you care? They ask it all the time. And we care because Jesus cares. And that's the motivation of what we do. So as you give, I'm going to take that money, and I'll make sure, if you can't do it today, maybe your check hasn't hit or something's not there, you got to talk to the spouse tonight. If it's especially a larger amount, I understand. I'll keep matching it until I hit the 500. And don't worry, my friends, all of this money will be absolutely, positively life-changing for these kids. So $25 buys a pair of shoes. $10 buys them a new uniform. If you do $65, you're making sure that one child, most of our kids at our school are not sponsored, meaning we're paying for that out of the general fund. So when you give to the greatest need, you're actually helping kids go to school, keep kids in school that don't have sponsors. So help us out with that if you could. We really would appreciate your help in that department. $65 sends a kid to school. Also gets some health care, health insurance. That's a good thing. This girl that had the severe trauma we just talked about, I don't want to go into the details of it. She had health insurance because she is a sponsored child. Now, of course, some of the help that we need to get her was a little bit outside of the parameters of her health insurance, but it was a lot easier for her because she did able to have the health insurance. So riverspromise.org, riverspromise.com. I'm going to match the 25 up to, I'm going to match, let's see, somebody else just kicked in. Arloa just kicked in. Arloa's spending my money. Arloa just pitched in $25. So just 2 people, Dennis and Arloa, in the last few minutes have jumped in here. I see on the screen. And so they've given 50 between them, and I'm now giving 50. So see, their 50 has become my 50. Now we have $100. That's how this thing's going to work. So go to riverspromise.com, riverspromise.org. If you yeah, I love to spend my money today. Match it. Producer Chad's match happened by a couple of hours after the show. And let's see when mine ends as well. Riverspromise.com, riverspromise.org. All right, ladies and gentlemen, have some pecan pie today. Have some pumpkin pie today. And I have to tell you this. I would like to say this right here. We have so much to be thankful for. And if you ever want to go to Africa over Thanksgiving, you will realize the point of what we have to be thankful for. And I have to tell you that we have a lot to be thankful for, a lot to be grateful for. And hopefully you have just be thankful. Just have a grateful heart. Don't get so caught up in politics right now that you can't pause and say, We're surrounded by crazy people, but I'm thankful. I still live on the greatest country in God's green earth. I still live on the greatest planet out there. And yes, I still live in the greatest nation that God ever put here, I believe. I still live here, and yeah, there's some squabbling, and yeah, there's some disagreements. But the fact that we have the right to squabble and the fact that we have the right to disagree, I'm thankful for that. And so find a reason to be thankful this holiday season, this Thanksgiving season. And if you want a reason to be thankful, go to facebook.com/riverspromise and scroll through, look at the photos, look at the kids that need sponsors. And you'll say, wow, I got a lot to be thankful for. You got to be thankful that your kids got to go to anywhere at, whether you're red state, blue state, your kids can go to the school. It may not be the school you want them to. Maybe you need more charter schools. I get it, but everybody has access to education in America, and we could fix the education in America. We still have access to what we have. And in Rwanda, it's not necessarily the same. Kids can go to school, but can you pay the fee? Can you buy the books? Can you have the uniform? Well, the education's free. Yeah, the education's free, but the teacher's fee is not free. And so kids need sponsors. So be thankful. Again, even though you're surrounded by crazy people and disagreement and disarray, and it's okay. We live in a country where it's free to disagree, and we should be thankful for that. I'm thankful for all of you. I'm thankful for all of you spending my money right now, $500 that I had not intended to give. I'm going to give today to match your $500. Go to riverspromise.com, riverspromise.org. And again, remember, if you just say, $25 buys that kid a pair of shoes, and that's our big Christmas project. We'll talk more about the building after I get back, and while I'm there, I'll show you a tour of the campus. But safe travels, everybody. I'm Jimmy Lakey. It's been a pleasure. Thank you. I'm thankful for producer Chad, who wakes up and puts up with this crap every day for almost 1 year. For all of you that set your alarm clock and somehow, like stalkers, kind of creepy, I gotta say, you're sitting in front of computers right about the same time. All of you that are listening later in the day, thank you. On the podcast platforms, Spotify, iHeart, you get the idea. All these platforms are on streaming us. We appreciate you listening there as well. I'll see you from Africa next week. We'll do the show from Africa. And until we meet again, I mean this from the bottom of my heart. I'm thankful for you. May God bless you. May God bless America. Keep spending my money. Last look, I got another $450 I got to spend here. Go spend it. riverspromise.com. I'm matching the funds for the next $500 in donations. God bless you. God bless America. Jimmy Lakey. Peace. I'm out of here. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.